Sahana bhavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahe, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be protected. May we be nourished. May we acquire the capacity to study and to understand the scriptures. And may our studies be brilliant. May we not quarrel with each other. And may we not quarrel with our own minds. Peace. Verse 4 to 10 of Gita, chapter 9. Krishna revealed the higher nature of Ishwara. And in chapter 7 we call this Paraprakriti. And Paraprakriti is also Nirgunam Brahman, and it is also Satyam, which means these words are synonymous. And verse 4 has defined Paraprakriti, or the higher nature of Ishwara, as Avyaktam, means formless, which means there is no form to it. It's colorless, which means it cannot be imagined. It's tasteless, which means we cannot have a divine taste. It's hearless, which means we cannot hear the higher nature. It is intuited-less, which means we cannot intuit God, because some people will argue and say intuition is a sixth sense. However, the point is it is still an object of knowledge, thus it cannot be the higher. So this means that whenever the goal of God is presented in the scriptures, then what we are talking about is the higher goal. And when we are speaking of God or Ishwara or Bhagavan in the general context of worship, that is in a general society, then we are talking about the lower. And this is important because the word God is used also very bluntly, or it's sort of loosely used throughout the scriptures. So we never know what is this word referring to, and the word flies around so many times. And thus, in this case, at least where we are now, we are specifically referring to the higher nature of Ishwara, which is Paraprakriti. And also, Kena Upanishad says that the formed Ishwara, that is the formed Ishwara of color, of taste, of sound, of hearing, is only an intermediary step to arrive to the formless Ishwara. Thus, indeed, it has its purpose. In other words, we cannot discard the formed because it leads us to the formless. And then in verse 11, Krishna said, the cause of all suffering in the world, even in the spiritual and the religious world, is not knowing about the higher nature of Ishwara. And the logic for this suffering is very simple. Whenever something that is perishable goes away, even if it's an image or a feeling of God, then I'm going to miss it. And then as a person, we're going to try to capture it again. And that's going to be frustrating because we know that it's hard to do so. And we're very dependent on our states of minds to recapture that moment of joy or something that we could visualize or feel His presence. So in other words, the person then is going to be either disappointed in themselves or they're going to be bored in the perishable items of the world. When the imperishable is unknown, then the perishable becomes the only object of knowledge. That's just logic. If I don't know the imperishable, then all I can chase for is the perishable, right? And the perishable doesn't last, and because it doesn't last, it's going to go away. And when it does go away, then the person's going to be disappointed, and they're going to be chasing for another hit, for another opportunity. But that also is going to go away sooner or later, so they're going to get frustrated again. And then from verse 12, Krishna categorized people into two types. Only two types. Everyone. No one's excluded from these two types. Type 1 was the majority. That means the ones who are worshipping the non-imperishable, in other words, the perishable, the lower, and ignorant of the higher. And for that reason, they do not know that the infinite security is in what place can I find the infinite security? So I look for the lower, for the infinite, but we cannot find the infinite in the lower. So we cannot find joy in the lower because, as I said, it's perishable, it will go away. As a result, the behavior of not knowing about this, we said that the person will then look for another opportunity. That's how the world is. That's what creates commercialism. That's what creates activity, trade, desires in the world. So wherever we look in the world, we see a lot of activity. That's a result of not knowing about the higher nature. So I need to capture something, at least for a little while, to give me some joy. And Krishna also criticized them in verse 12. He said that these people are full of vain hope, vain knowledge, and vain desires. And for that reason, they do not know what they want. That's a common phrase. I don't know what I want in life. What do you want? I don't know. What are you looking for? I'm not quite sure. So what happens then? Then they go out and look for something else, right? Hoping to find something that I belong, like a community or a particular guru or acharya, looking for something. And I'm looking for signs. Type 2 was mentioned in verse 13. Type 1 is worldly people. Type 2, Mahatma. Mahatma means great or noble soul. Mahatma can also refer to a Jivan Muktaha, but in this case it refers to a dedicated person who is studying the scriptures regularly. And the Mahatma also has worldly duties like type 1, also has activity and pursuits and various passions. However, these passions are all directed towards the higher nature. That means all their energy, all their time, all of their resources goes towards the higher. And one can only do that if they've been educated about the higher. So obviously type 2 has gone through the Gita classes or at least had faith to stick around for long enough. They can choose to have children. They can choose to be in a married life. It makes no difference. That's not the obstacle at all. Except that while they're in their endeavor, in their worldly endeavor, they never lose eye on the higher. That's the only difference. Type 2 is further split into 3 stages. So in the paper you put type 2 people, which are keeping their eye on Ishwara, and they are further divided into 3 categories. And these 3 ways is the maturity of a bhakta, of a devotee, how every devotee goes through. So stage 1 was Eka Rupa Ishwara, Ishwara in one form only. This is the most gross type of bhakti. This means the mind in stage 1 is the most gross, it's the most worldly. It associates itself mostly with world, tangible, concrete items. This is a stage where we have a personalized God. We embellish him or her with what we would have it be that represents for us the divine. We also call this Ishtadevata, personal deity. In this case, the deity or this Ishwara is sitting in a location and relaxing at some place. We never know what place, but all we know is they're at some place. And we have terms like Swarga, we have Brahmaloka, we have Kailasa, we have heaven in English, we have Vaikuntha. So there's different words in different traditions that we use, but they all refer to some place out there. This means if you're in China, all you have to do is look up, God is up there. If you're on the other side of the world, you still look up and God is up there. So you can see the relativity and it's completely missed out. The status of these people is Advaita Vedanta, which means Lord and I are different. Stage 2 is Aneka Rupa Ishwara. Aneka. Aneka means many or multiple. Now put in brackets / Vishvarupa. This is a more common word in the scriptures. One understands that the cosmic Lord is one form only. It is still a form, but it is one. There is no personal anymore. So this means that the appreciation of Ishwara has matured from stage 1, where I was embellishing my God only. Yours is not so special as mine. And then through some time, through reading some scriptures, through some assimilation, then the person will go, well, God has to run this world, so obviously he has to be everywhere, wherever I look. So this is the kind of talk that goes on in the head. And in this case, he's not sitting in one location. He's everywhere, wherever we look, even in the air that we breathe. Also in the Rudram, that says that Shiva just represents the total, is in the form of a dry leaf, also a green leaf, the mud, everything ordinary that we see, Shiva is. So this is an example of stage 2. The Rudram it's just saying wherever you look, there is no out there is no special. It's everywhere, wherever you look, even these words that you're hearing is sitting on the chair, everything is Ishwara. A question, if you put all forms together, what do they usually make up? Suppose you take like a bunch of mud, right? What do we usually do? We kind of, in a spherical or an ellipsis. Okay. For example, a chicken egg. Now, why is a chicken egg ellipse or spherical? Why is it not square? So why is it an ellipse? And inside the egg is what? A chicken, a whole life. So if you put all forms together, you clump them together, you get usually an ellipse or a spherical shape. Even if you look at a galaxy, you usually see these ellipses or spherical shapes. If you're a Shiva Bhakta, then you have the Shiva Linga, which is also a beautiful, smooth ellipse. If you're a Vishnu, then there is a fossilized seashell rock called Shalagrama, right? And the status of stage 2 is Vashishta Advaita Vedanta. I'm a part of God, but I'm not God. Also in stage 2, there is still a principle called heaven, and the purpose is to work my way towards heaven. So there's still this split. I need to be with God at some place, even though he's not at one place. Now stage 3 is the final, Arupa Ishwara. Arupa means without form. This is Aham Brahmanasmi. This means the truth of I and the total is not two. So the question of part and whole is non-existent in this case. In other words, everything is the one indivisible whole in stage 3, which means there's no difference between the self and Ishwaran. And this is called Advaita Vedanta. So, stage 1, Dvaita Vedanta, stage 2, Vishishta Dvaita, and stage 3, Advaita. So, the reason I said these words is if you look at Vedanta, what confuses people often is they'll see these different, like, where am I? I'm in Vedanta. What about Vishishta Dvaita? Maybe that's something to explore. They are just simply providing the capacity for which the mind can assimilate. If the mind is very gross, then we're going to give you something called Dvaita. God is over there and you're over here. If the mind is more sophisticated, then we're going to give you Vishishta Dvaita, which means everything is God, however, you are not God. When a person has finally hanged around in that area for a while, and their mind is more pure, more mature, then they will slowly come to Advaita Vedanta. And Krishna says every devotee goes through all 3 stages. Now the problem, a person will read books like the Ramana Maharishi, which talks about always the last stage, stage 3. And what Krishna is saying is you cannot skip because the mind has not been made subtle enough to actually see the depth of these teachings. Now these stages have 3-fold. In other words, when we say bhakti, often we don't know what does the word bhakti mean, right? It does not mean one particular sadhana. It means range of sadhanas, not one. And this range consists of 3 levels. The first one is karma yoga. This is meant to purify the gross mind. Stage 2 is upasana, or bhakti. Whenever I say upasana, I'm also saying bhakti. This is to meditate on saguna Ishwara, God with attributes. Now the purpose of stage 2, which is upasana, is to integrate the 3 personalities, which is the physical, mental, and intellectual. I'll show you why we need to integrate. Suppose when a person lies, now suppose the emotion, it has a feeling of happiness when it says an untruth. But the intellect knows that the actual truth is A. But for the emotion to feel good, it has to mention B. But it clearly knows that A is the truth of the matter. So in other words, the emotion overrides the intellect just for the sake of the emotion feeling good so that the person can feel good. So this is what we call a lack of integration. So what Upasana does, it integrates these personalities, especially the emotion and the intellect, so that the person is congruent between what they say, how they act, and how they think. That's what we call an integrous person. So this is why we should not skip and jump into the last stage. And the last stage is Jnana Yoga. Okay, this is the Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam, assimilation or inquiry into Nirguna Ishwara. This is stage 3. So this means that if bhakti is divorced from knowledge, then it will not lead to liberation. Because we just said, bhakti consists of 3 stages: Karma Yoga, Upasana, and Jnana Yoga. Chapter 4, verse 33, Krishna says that all rituals, ritual means yajnaha or puja, are meant to culminate to a systematic study or atma vichara, self-inquiry. So every ritual that we do, no matter what it involves, the whole purpose of that ritual is just so it can all culminate to Jnana Yoga. That's it. So this means if the person gets stuck in a ritual and they're not moving on, then if they come to class, then they go, okay, now I should move on. So the order is Karma Yoga is stage 1, which relates to what? Eka Rupa Ishwara. You see the connection? Which means I can only see one God. That's why Karma Yoga is always about devoting to my Lord for the sake of exhausting the ahankara. Stage 2 is Upasana, which is meditating on Saguna Ishwara. This is Aneka Rupa Ishwara or Vishvarupa. In other words, Lord is everything. The only way you can worship everything is if you know that everything is worthy of worship, which is the Lord itself or Himself. And the last is Jnana Yoga, stage 3. All that is here is one without a second, the one indivisible reality. Now, verse 16. Aham kraturaham yajnaha swadhaham aham aushadham mantroham aham evajyam aham agniraham hutam. The question will now arise, how do I devote to this all-pervading Ishwara? So everything we're going to speak now from verse 16 to 19 will be stating the details. Now what's stage 2 again? Vishvarupa Ishwara, which means Lord is everywhere. We're all clear on that? Okay. So the first question we'll ask is, what is Vishvarupa Ishwara? Or Vishvarupa Bhakti? Because Bhakti is the actual practice of this vision. The answer is looking into manifestation as the Lord Himself. That means whatever I see is the Lord Himself. Whatever I feel, whatever I think, whatever I do in my life, from the moment of waking to sleeping, everything was just Lord in many different ways. And initially, we always start by seeing Lord in the pleasant things. This is how it starts. For example, we see it in the rainbow or the sunshine, or we see it in our partner, or something that we really enjoy. In other words, we see Lord in our ragaha, in our attractions, in our likes. The reason for this is, if you see the Lord in a cockroach, then most of us are going to get turned off. So for this reason, we hide the unpleasant dvesha, the unpleasant dislikes. So what we have to do is eventually we pick one item that we cannot quite see Lord in. For example, a Hitler or type, or an animal eating another animal, or something that we don't want to see. So what we do is we look at one little part and we see, how is this part Lord? We don't have to take the whole thing. And then we expand our focus to include something else, maybe the head or the ears, or maybe the behavior. And then we include eventually the entire entity, until the entire entity is seen as the Lord also. So take it very small, small chunks, small steps. And then Krishna says, Aham kratuhu. So Krishna is speaking as Ishwara says, I am the rituals and the prayers prescribed by the Shruti or the Veda. Shruti or the Veda is the primary original scriptures. What is our common view? I'm going to reach, or I'm going to contact God through this ritual. I'm going to perform a ritual in order to contact a particular deity for some benefit. But what Krishna is saying here, the very ritual that I'm using is Lord himself. So this means everything that we say, all mantras that we use to gain some benefits, that is Lord also. And then Krishna says, Aham yajnaha. Now in this case, yajnaha means rituals or prayers prescribed by secondary scriptures. In other words, they're drawing their knowledge from the primary scriptures of the Veda. So this means that the Veda has an independent, it stands of itself. It does not need something to validate it. Whereas the secondary scriptures need the Veda to validate it. For example, Smriti, which is the Bhagavad Gita, drawing from the primary, which is the Veda. We've got Itihasa, we've got Purana, and also actually most Indian festivals will draw their festivals from the Puranas, and the Puranas draw from the Veda, like Deepavali also is a Puranic event. And they're all considered holy because the Vedas themselves are holy, because they represent the knowledge of Ishwara. So if we were to ask Ishwara, can you please prescribe us or write us a book how to deal in this world that we are in as people, then Ishwara would create a text called Veda, and then Veda Vyasa would split it into 4 for easier digestion. So we say for this reason that the Veda is equally superior to Ishwara. Why? Because we get to know Ishwara through the Veda. That's all we have to get to know Ishwara. In fact, if you think about it, the Veda was only translated recently in the 1800s by various Westerners. And today we have a lot of them who are attracting, for some reason, huge crowds, and yet selectively choosing small parts from the Veda and not even mentioning that it all comes from the Veda alone. Because the Veda is the source of non-duality. Before the Veda, we had things like Aristotle and Plato and maybe Kashmir Shaivism a little bit and some Gnostic texts. Right, but we didn't have this coming into the West. So it is actually a duty of any Vedantin to acknowledge that this is coming from the Hindu tradition of the Veda. And then Krishna says, Aham swadha. I am the offering to the forefathers or the ancestors. In other words, when we give an offering to our forefathers, this is a tradition, to respect them for all of the knowledge which they have provided for us today. Because if you think about it, we're enjoying this knowledge. Why? Because of those ancestors before us. So there's a yajnaha to thank the forefathers for doing so, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And when we do so, that is called swadha. And when you offer to the devatas a ritual or an offering to the fire, the agnihi, then we call that swaha. May this blessing rest on. In other words, if I'm offering to a particular deity, and I give an offering, and I throw into the fire, the agnihi, I say swaha. What am I saying? May this which I'm offering rest on or be delivered to this deity which I am giving this to. And then Krishna says, Aham aushadham. Aushadham is plant material. I am the food eaten by all human beings. So the food that you ate before coming here, you ate Krishna, you ate Ishwara in a form of food. In other words, in those days, medicine was also called Aushadham. And why? Because this is how the science of medicine came along, called Ayurveda, which just means I study plants and herbs and I observe their effects on the human body through a course of time, and then I document what effects it has, and then by that documentation I can then replicate it onto other beings. So this is how the science of Ayurveda came. So in the Vedic tradition, it's commonly known that the correct food combinations, if in the right proportion according to a body type, which was also studied in itself, is a cure for many diseases and also prevention from ailments. So this means, since Ishwara is the food, the instruction is do not mindlessly gulp or chew food and then just swallow. Because doing so, I'm disrespecting Ishwara. See, small things like that actually count. And also, if you think about it, the digestive fire, which actually digests this food, which is also Ishwara, helps us to keep living for tomorrow, to continue enjoying. So this really makes you think how everything you do, including the very food I have, is an offering of Ishwara, so I can keep living and exhausting my punya papa karma. Then, aham mantraha. I am also in the very mantras which you utter in your rituals, including Sahana Vavatu and Om Purnamadav and so on. Every single mantra we ever uttered is also Ishwara himself. Then, aham eva ajyam. I am the clarified butter offered in rituals. In the Vedic tradition, a cow is holy. The reason is because it symbolizes qualities. The first quality is an unyielding intellect. In other words, it refuses to move. In other words, the cow knows what it wants. So if the cow could speak, it would say, I know what I want, don't touch me. And even if you do, I'm staying right here. So it is extremely stubborn. It knows where it needs to be. Also because of sattvic calmness, because it represents the quality of all the rishis or the sages. And this just means as a cow, I am unwilling to submit to distractions. If you put a cow in a very noisy place, an ordinary person will freak out or not, whereas a cow will, moo and will not be moved by any of the distractions. So this is a quality that we can replicate from a cow. And the other quality is a cow is extremely generous. For example, take a little bit of the grass that it has, and then it will, a few hours later, it will deliver so much, and it will repeat doing that on and on and on. And even the cow manure, that can also be used for food, for fertilizing, not eating, because it's a highly nutritious. If we take the cow as an analogy how to live, that means we can be extremely generous, take very little, maintain a sattvic mind, that means a very simple, calm lifestyle, refuse to put yourself in places that distract the mind, have a very unyielding intellect, which means an intellect that knows what it wants. I know what I want and I'm not going to be moved or swayed away by the world. So now, if the cow is that holy, then think about the butter. Then the product which it provides, the butter itself, also is thus holy. Then, aham agnihi. I am the very fire into which the offering is given. According to the Vedas, the Agnihi Devata is like a postal service or a messenger. So whatever we throw into the fire, then we deliver that offering to the appropriate devata. It's not in the Vedas, but I'll just give you a metaphor. An offering is what? It's gross, right? Now what does fire do? Convert it into subtle. And what are the devatas? Are they gross or subtle? They're subtle. So in a way, it's a metaphor at least, we're taking this product, this offering, and we're offering it to the subtle nature of the devatas. I'm not saying this is what the Veda says, I'm just saying it's a visual metaphor. Next, aham hutam. I am the very action of offering. So suppose that you wish to offer some butter to the fire. The very movement, the muscle movement, and the hand moving from one hand from one position to the other, that action alone is also made possible through Ishwara. In fact, it is Ishwara alone. So the essence of verse 16 is everything is Ishwara. Why did we not say this at the beginning and go, okay, next verse, verse 17 now? We have to address the human mind. If you don't spend time with something, then it forgets it. There's no impact, there's no emotional connection. So this is why we have to spend some time going through the verse and giving you the details. I alone am the ritual prescribed by the Shruti. I am the ritual prescribed by Smriti. I am the food offered to the ancestors. I am the food of all living beings. I am the mantra. I am the fire. I am the ghee. I am the action of offering. Pitaham asya jagataha mata dhata pitamahaha vedyam pavitram onkaraha reksama yajurevacha. 9.17 will continue the same topic of Vishvarupa Bhakti. How to devote to the all-present Lord. So these are the various ways to do so. How do I actually express my devotion that everything is the Lord here? He says, Aham asya jagataha pita. Before moving forward, if you're listening to this and you're going, how does this apply to me? Then, I said before, if there is no devotion, then no matter how much self-knowledge we gain, it is not going to stick. What makes knowledge stick? Answer, devotion. There is no cheating. So we need to discover how can I see Ishwara and how can I appreciate the all-knowing, all-present Lord everywhere. I am the Father, in other words, the parent of this creation. From me alone, the whole creation is originated. Now you're going to say, well, who's the mother? Now he includes the word mata also. I'm also the mother. In other words, I am two in one. Which means I am nimitta karanam, which means intellectual cause, knowledge cause of this world, the knowledge cause of this universe, and the upadana karanam, the material cause of this universe. I am both, says Ishwara. Now, next question is, if Ishwara is the father of the universe, then who is Ishwara's father? And then Krishna says, Pita mahaha api aham eva. I am the grandfather also. Which means Ishwara was never born. Ishwara does not have a parent. I am the causeless cause. I caused the world as the whole, but nothing caused me. Next, dhata. Not data as in giver, but dhata. I am the dispenser or the distributor of everything. How? According to karma palam. I give according to what fruits each person in every part, everywhere in the universe deserves. So I determine what every single jiva should get or should not get, including whether I should get as a person, or you should get, a male body, a female body, an animal body, a plant body, a healthy body, a body deformed by nuclear leaks like Chernobyl or Fukushima or anywhere. All of those bodies that are born and deformed, that's also karma palam. There is no such thing as an unjust Ishwara. Everything from A to Z happens exactly what the jiva deserves. That is a truth that we all need to accept. And also, Ishwara determines how much I get of anything in life. Some people get a lot of success, some people get a lot of suffering, that is also determined by Ishwara's laws and orders, not Ishwara himself, yes?
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, I was going to get there because I was going to say that later, just so you could think, yeah. Okay, so now you're going to say, okay, so then is Ishwara doing this? No, Ishwara is providing the laws and orders which are as they are. They do not change, and they're simply there available, and how I as a jiva interact with this world is how the laws and orders are going to provide. As we said before, Ishwara is a giver of resources. He is not there coordinating and moving everyone like puppets. So how does Bhagavan determine what everyone should get? The answer is law of karma. I give to everyone in the right place at the right time. When a person says I'm lucky, that's because of their past punya, or in this case it's punya. If they say unlucky, then it will be past papa. Even if a person says, what did I do to deserve this? I'm a good person. I've been really good for the last 5 years. Why this? Like I see people who are cheating and they're way more lucky than I am, right? So this simply means if a complaint like this comes, you have not understood the law of karma. I do not remember what I did 5 years, 10 years, or even two lifetimes ago, or even 100 lifetimes ago. So this means whatever comes, do not reject it, because if I do, what happens? You are rejecting Ishwara. This is also true for whenever we see innocent people, supposedly we call them innocent, suffering. And what does this mean? Suffering because of karma palam. So just to demonstrate, suppose a natural disaster happens like a tsunami or an earthquake. Does that natural disaster equally affect everyone? Absolutely not. Some people see it as a blessing. Some people move away from that area, go into a new area and make friends who are a lot more better than the ones that were over there. Some people realize, my goodness, I've been working my whole life and all of this was just washed away in 1 second. I am now going to change my perspective and realize there is not much happiness in these material objects. So even a disaster itself can be a different effect depending on the person's perception. In this case, every person, how they respond themselves is also karma palam as a result of how they have perceived the world in the past.
So really the house is destroyed in the fire and all that is all karma palam?
All karma palam, yeah. Because sometimes you can have a mass-wide fire, and then most houses get destroyed, but like some house is just intact, or maybe just the corner is okay. And it's if you think about it, people hold their possessions in their house, like their lifelong. Suppose they have a hard drive, and all of their data and pictures is on a hard drive, and that burns. That's very painful, right? All of your data. But for some people, it doesn't happen. So this is all depending on karma palam. But also, if it does happen, from that moment on, the person has an opportunity to rectify their perception by looking at this as a blessing and not as a curse. Because if I look at it as a curse, what am I doing? Creating more papa karma, which is going to be a karma palam in the future. Next, Vedyam. I am the ultimate principle to be known, knowing which the intellectual quest for all knowledge ceases. So this means human beings have 3 cravings, or 3 hungers. The first hunger is the physical hunger. Now, physical hunger can be unnatural or natural. The natural physical hunger means I eat to survive because I'm hungry. Unnatural, I am obsessed with food, over-pampering the body. This is common in the youthful age. The second hunger is emotional hunger. This usually is always regarding to, I don't feel loved. You don't love me. You haven't said you love me in the last 2 days. Something's wrong. Do you love me? Oh, you do. Why do you love me? What's so special that you love me? Oh, okay. Well, how is that special? Everyone has that. I don't believe you. What else do you love about me? Please show me that I'm lovable. Keep feeding me that I'm lovable. Oh, he hasn't said anything in 5 days. He's 2 days overdue to say I love you. He's probably found someone else, right? So these kinds of hungers expressed as emotional need for love or to love someone is a hunger in itself. And the third hunger is intellectual hunger. This hunger is also something that we all have to know. I have a need to know something. This hunger is expressed by surrounding yourself with libraries of books and wanting to know everything about everything. Okay, and even if you do, you're still not satisfied because there's always more to know, right? So what Krishna is saying is, once I have Vedyam intellectually satisfied, once I know the knowledge, knowing which all knowledge is known, then the intellectual hunger collapses automatically. For example, we use the golden ornament metaphor. If I have truly taken the time to assimilate how is everything here ornament in this world, including the doubts that I have is also a ornament, the self-inquiry is also an ornament, the cheerfulness is also an ornament, the sadness is an ornament, and yet no matter what it is itself nothing but the gold. So what's then the point of self-inquiry? Because the self-inquiry is also made out of the gold. So if you have assimilated and taken the time to contemplate the depth of this one metaphor, then your intellectual seeking will automatically reduce. This is the natural byproduct of satisfying the intellectual quotient or the hunger. Then Krishna says, Onkaraha. Ishwara is the essence of all four Vedas. Ishwara can be represented as Om also. So, Om is the essence of all four Vedas. This is why Veda is also called Brahma, long A at the end, which means the creator of the universe, because it is all knowledge. Now, a question is going to arise, and you're going to say, how did Ishwara, which represents Veda in a form, how did they come to be condensed into Om? How do you go from Veda or Ishwara into Om? Because Om represents the total knowledge of the whole universe. So your question should be, what does that mean? How is that true? So you're getting the question? I said Ishwara is the essence of all four Vedas. Now, the Veda is knowledge of everything, both the higher and the lower. So Ishwara is also Om, because Om embodies Ishwara. So Om is the essence of the Veda. So now my question is, how does Om encompass or embody the entire knowledge of the Veda? Are you getting the question? Okay. In the Devi Bhagavatam Purana, it said, in the beginning, list beginning, all there was is Veda. That means all knowledge. I'm not talking about the text now. I'm talking about the all knowledge principle. And this Veda was first condensed into the Gayatri form. Now you're going to say, what is the Gayatri form? Gayatri means the ancient meter of 24 syllables. So I want you to write this order down. So Veda, Gayatri form. Now, what are these 24 aspects or syllables representing? That should be your next question. So they will represent different aspects of reality. And all these different aspects of 24 aspects of reality are actually including all the knowledge of the Veda. You following? So if I were to take thousands of pages of the Veda and put them into 24 principles, you would ask, what are they? For example, the principle of Durga, or the aspect of reality called Durga, which means positive protective energy. In other words, the aspect which protects one against wickedness. Another aspect is Kali. Kali is a darker aspect of Durga. In other words, it's still protective against wickedness, but it's a lot more darker, fierce. For example, a fierce protective energy of the mom of a child who is being threatened by someone. So what happens? The mother comes with this fierce energy. That energy is Kali. If that energy is not contained, it can be extremely destructive if it's not contained by the intellect. Another aspect is Lakshmi. So this aspect is responsible for all of the prosperity that happens in whoever's life who follows Dharma or the laws of the Veda. So if you stick with Dharma, you follow Ahimsa, you do not lie, cheat, or hurt, and eventually then life is going to be prosperous, it's going to be successful. That success aspect is Lakshmi. Another aspect is Saraswati. This aspect is responsible for the discriminating intellect, which is capable of assimilating knowledge. So without this aspect, we could not even negotiate between what is the real and the unreal. Another aspect is Brahma. This aspect is the creator of the entire universe, or that one which manifests the unmanifest. Because to say creator can be a little bit, you think it's coming out of nothing. So Brahma manifests into creation. Another aspect is Vishnu. Vishnu sustains that which is manifested. Thus we're able to say sun. The sun was manifested how? Brahma. And now the fact that I can see the sun through the course of time, it's sustained by the aspect of Vishnu. And then when the object goes back into the unmanifest, we call that aspect Shiva. In other words, Shiva is an aspect which paves way for a new manifest to come and then be sustained by Vishnu. Also, if you think about Shiva, often we think the destroyer, right? So I want you to change this perspective a little bit, because to say destroy can be sort of abstract. So think of it as a sweeper. You know, when we sweep something, we put it into a different corner. We haven't got rid of it, we just put it into where? The unmanifest. It's still there. Or Shiva can also be the converter. For example, if I throw a piece of wood in fire, then that wood is going to convert into a different form. Thus, the wood itself is a Brahma aspect. I threw it into the fire, and this Brahma aspect, this manifest, was converted into a different manifest. So the fact that it can go from A to B to C, that is required or possible by Shiva aspect. Now, this 24 form syllable, which represents the entire creation, can be further condensed into 3 simple mantras. The first one is Bhuhu, that's a long U, Bhuhu. Second, Bhuvaha. And third is Suvaha. Now I want you to put a table, and I'm going to give you 3 meanings for all of them, because there's different meanings for them. Bhuhu means the past, Bhuvaha means the present, Suvaha means the future. Tell me this, is anything excluded from the past, present, and the future? Thus, it embodies all 24 aspects, and 24 aspects are the knowledge of the entire Veda, and the entire Veda itself represents the formless Ishwara, and also the form Ishwara. The other meanings, I'm going to give you this in order, is Bhuhu is Tamaguna, Rajaguna, and then Sattvaguna is the last one. Next one is body, mind, intellect. Next one is the Sthula Sharira, the gross body, Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body, and the Karana Sharira, the causal body. Next one is morning, noon, evening. Next one is waking, dream, deep sleep. The next one is manifestor, that means Brahma, sustainer, and the unmanifester. Can you see the correlation, how there's 3 for everything? So if you look at any one of these 3, they resemble what? The total, that's all there is. If I look at my day, it includes nothing but the morning, the noon, and the evening. And you just times that by infinity, and then you have every single day. The whole creation is made out of Tamaguna, Rajaguna, and Sattvaguna. The whole experience is nothing but the 3 states, the waking, the dream, and the deep sleep. There's nothing but in the entire universe, the macro and the micro, the micro and the macro, the physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body. Now, these 3 mantras are further condensed into 3 syllables. So there's an arrow. See how we're going smaller and smaller and smaller? We started from Veda, Gayatri 24 form, 3 mantras, and now 3 syllables. Aum, Aum. Now, if you condense that even further through Sandhi, A plus U in Sanskrit equals O. So the true pronunciation of Aum is Om. Whether it's spelled A-U-M or O-M, you don't pronounce it Aum, it's pronounced Om. So what does this mean? The entire 1 syllable of Om embodies the entire Veda. Now, what was my original question? How do we condense the entire Veda into Om? Can you see the order now? Okay. So the summary is the Vedas represent Ishwara. The Om represents Ishwara. That's why we respect the Vedas, because the Vedas are literally Ishwara. If you want to see God in form and see, we can't see the formless, but if you want to read about it, the Vedas are right there. That's why we always give credit to the original source. I am the father of this world. I am the mother. I am the one who sustains it. I am the grandfather, the uncaused cause. I am what is to be born, the unmanifest. I am the purifier. I am the Omkara. I am the Rik, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Veda. Gatir Bharta Prabhuk Sakshi Nivasa Sharanam Suhrita Prabhavaf Pralayach Sthanam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam. Krishna is going to list the glories for us to inquire into. If you're asking what should I inquire into, just will answer the question. Gatihi. I am the destination and the goal which is kept by every person in this world. And what is that? Karma palam. In fact, we all do only to enjoy the results of our karma. Whether the person is on the side of adharma or dharma, it doesn't matter. They're still doing things to enjoy. And what Krishna is saying is, I am the very goal that everyone is seeking. However they look at their goal, that is Ishwara. So what are we all seeking? Ishwara alone, yeah. So this means also that success is Ishwara, but also so is failure. So now what happens if I reject failure? What am I rejecting? Ishwara. Then how am I, see, failure provides us what? A reference point for what not to do so that I may next time improve and optimize the way I do things. So one welcomes failure gladly because it is just a simple tool to help me to expand spiritually in every way. So this means that we accept both good and apparently bad in our life because they're both Ishwara. Never reject the unpleasant. Bhartaha. I am the sustainer. That means the karma pala data. In other words, I give karma palam to every jiva in this world. I sustain them how? By constantly delivering to them the karma pala of their past actions. Now, think about this. Ishwara is the karma pala data, which means the giver of the fruits of actions for every single jiva in the entire universe. Can you see how great this intelligence is? How it's keeping track for every single person? Think about it this way. A meteorologist uses about 100 factors to determine if rain is going to fall tomorrow. Now, why do they fail? They used 100 factors only, and yet they still haven't predicted the weather because of unknown principles. Whereas Ishwara considers not only 100 principles, but how many? Infinite principles. So this makes you appreciate the vastness, how intelligent it is that every person wakes up and continues as they were yesterday. They don't take on the personality or the karma of their husbands or wives or find themselves in a different body. Everything is on track. And this continues to be so in the past, the present, and the future. Also in the Christian language, we have a beautiful phrase, thy will be done. This actually is a perfect symbolized form of whatever I do, thy will be done. I do good, thy will be done. I do really good, thy will be also done, according to your punya or papa karma. So what does thy will be done mean? You will receive as you have asked. So this means God does not punish, God simply is a data, a giver of what the person deserves based on their own actions. Next, prabhuhu. I am the master capable of coordinating the karma pala data for all beings. In other words, I am the sarva jnanam sarva shakti. Next, I am sakshi. In other words, from the standpoint of my maya shakti, I do everything in this universe, or my laws and orders do everything in this universe. From the standpoint of the higher, that is para prakriti, from Brahman's standpoint, I am a mere witness. And this mere witness, I am not thus contaminated nor tainted by my own beautiful Maya Shakti, which is seemingly able to cause me to feel that I am much smaller than I actually am, or I am limited, or that I am other than who I am. Next, Nivasaha. I am the abode of everything. That means the whole creation is resting on me, just like this light is resting on the wall. Next one, Sharanam. I am the shelter or the refuge, which means when the jiva has no one else to turn to, and everyone rejects us, nobody is willing to understand our situation, and we feel alone, we feel like we're very unique, and nobody really gets me, right? Not even the closest people get me, and we have truly no one to turn to. Who is there for refuge? Lord alone. In other words, in the case of Arjuna, who was in the battlefield, Kurukshetra, he had nowhere to turn, thus he turned to Lord himself. That's why we're learning this now, because of Arjuna's questions. Or Draupadi, who was about to be disrobed by Dushasan, and in that last moment, when she knew what was about to happen, I'm going to have my clothes taken off in front of the public, then she completely did what? Surrendered to the Lord, and thus the Lord saved her. So what this is saying is, he or she who surrenders to me completely, I shall protect. He or she who puts their time, energy, and effort into the Shastra as the word of Ishwara, I will protect. Whereas the one who does not, then I cannot protect, because they will not receive my protection. They will see it as uninteresting or not worthy. Next one, Suhrit is a well-wisher. So Krishna is saying, or Ishwara, I am a well-wisher of all. There's a difference between Suhrit and Mitram. Mitram means friend. A friend, I know someone, thus I help them only. And the second attribute of a friend is there is a subtle expectation, maybe in the future. So I help them as long as they are there for me. It may not be immediately verbalized, but it's still there. Whereas a Suhrit, a well-wisher, is one who helps even the unknown. I don't have to know you to help you. And also, the other attribute is a Suhrit has no expectations, nor does want anything in return, because the giving had nothing to do with me wanting to receive something. So that's the difference. So Ishwara is a Suhrit of all, well-wisher. Next one, Nidhanam. I am the storehouse of all that is unmanifest. This includes Sanchita karma. Sanchita means accumulated karmas. All the samskaras, and all the due karma palam. Now, one point is, why am I using Sanskrit words? Why am I not just saying all your accumulated karmas, all your fruits of your actions, and all of the habitual impressions? Because there's a reason. I know that most of us are going to go solo at one point or another, or you're going to find something else or someone else, but it's still going to be in this tradition. If I'm teaching you English, by the time you go there, you're going to hear words like samskara, vasana, karma palam, nididhyasana, and so on. So if I would speak in English, I'll be wasting your time, basically, because the scriptures are using the same words, thus it is my duty to use the words which you will see in the future. So don't be turned off by the Sanskrit words that I'm using. It's just for your own good. Now, suppose a scientist finds something, a new law. What the Shastra is saying is, no, you have not found anything. You have simply discovered what already was. In other words, we do not ever produce knowledge. We simply, by attuning our minds and thoughts at the right place and the right time, we get to investigate or detect or capture a certain reality which was already there all along, and as a result, I then prescribe it on a piece of paper. This is what it means. I am that which is unmanifest, and I am also that which is manifest. Gravity was there whether it was discovered or not. I simply watched and I used my inquiry and then I go, gravity. And then I wrote books about it. In other words, there is no such thing as an author in this world. The only author is Ishwara. We're just sub-authors capturing Ishwara's knowledge and then making money off it. Avyayam bijam. Next point. I am the inexhaustible seed out of which the infinite objects are manifest. In other words, the inexhaustible source that cannot be exhausted, thus always new objects, new knowledges can always come into the manifest. So the last was I am the unmanifest, and this is I am the manifest. I am the result of all actions, the one who nourishes, the Lord, the witness. I am the abode, the refuge, and I am the helpful by my very nature. I am the one from whom the whole creation has come, into whom everything is resolved, and in whom everything has its being, in whom everything is placed, and the imperishable one. Tapam yaham aham varsham nigranam yutsrjami cha amritam chaiva mrityuscha sadasachaham arjuna. So the glories are going to continue. And aham tapami. In the form of sun, the physical sun, I energize all life on earth. Meaning the humans are surviving every single day because of me as the sun. Without the sun, there is no life on this world. So just the sun alone, if you think about it, all of the human drama in this world, in the past, present, and future, is only possible because of the sun. And yet, who talks about the sun while they're having domestic issues? No one. That would be quite strange. So in other words, in the same way, Ishwara is always there providing, and we do not acknowledge Ishwara. Why? Because it is so obvious, so present, so all the time-ish available that we completely miss it out. And this is why the sun is also worshipped. We have the Surya Namaskara, because Surya is a very wonderful symbolism of Ishwara, the one who is ever compassionate, shining, providing all life, never complains, and whether we talk harshly or not of it, it does not care, it just keeps providing all day long. It is the ultimate giver and it is inexhaustible of itself. Nothing needs to give it its own energy. Of course, if you bring a scientist, then they will say, well, it is going to expire in a couple of billions of years. Next one, aham nigranami. I draw. In other words, I heat the oceanic waters and I evaporate them into clouds for free. Imagine having a ginormous heater, right? You could never do the amount of work that the sun alone does to evaporate this water into the clouds. Suppose now acid rain falls. Is that Ishwara? No, the effect. I'm talking about suppose there's acid rain, because originally water is what? Pure. But because of our karma, we then pollute the waters, and now that polluted water evaporates into the ocean, into the clouds, and then we get acid rain. Can we now blame God for that? No. So you can see how karma palam, we bring our own death, we bring our own toxic air, and then we get to breathe that in because of our own activities. In other words, we can indeed override what Ishwara is providing. Ishwara is providing clean air, clean water, but because of our irresponsible actions, we can override that. But what happens? We don't get away with it. We suffer. Yeah, that's what karma palam means.
I think the impact of climate change is
Indeed.
clear.
Indeed.
It's a clear example of what you're saying.
Yeah, indeed. In other words, climate change is not going to suddenly cease the process of evaporating the water. That's going to continue. But what the constituents of what is present, that we add onto. Then what? Utsrajami cha. I release this water onto the land. How? By the help of Vayuhu Devata, the wind. Without the wind, the clouds will not go to the mountains. The mountains will then not form little paths into the ocean, nor will they nourish the people or the plants that reside amidst the banks of the rivers. And because of this, Amritam Chaiva Mrityuscha, I am the cause of mortality and immortality, which has two meanings. The first one is an empirical vyavaharika meaning, which says this: because I evaporate the water into the clouds, and the clouds then provide that water in the form of rain, and then the rain makes the plants grow, and then the human beings get to eat the plants. Thus, what do? I keep the person immortal, at least in one life. So I'm the cause of your immortality, at least in this life. Because without my rain, without my plants, you could never survive. But also, I, as Ishwara, am also the cause of mortality. Why? Because I produce droughts. Now, drought can come in the form of human karma palam, but also natural drought. And the philosophical meaning is, I am the cause of immortality because I am the one who blesses the Jnana Yogi or the Bhakta with self-knowledge. And I'm also the cause of mortality because I do not bless those who do not take interest in Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. So it depends on the person or what they do. I either give mortality or immortality. And finally, Sat Asat Aham Eva. Sat means manifest or concrete. In other words, it's a visible creation. So I am the visible creation, like your physical body. And Asat, which means unmanifest or abstract. Give me an example of unmanifest.
Maybe a baby that hasn't...
Yeah, okay. Good starter.
The tree and the seed?
Yep, another good example. What else is unmanifest?
The causal body.
100% correct, yeah. The causal body, okay, why is the causal body unmanifest? Causal body, we're speaking about that which makes you as a person. Martin just shook his head. Did Martin know that he was going to shake his head the way that he did? Not until he shook his head. In other words, it was unmanifest, and only when a proper trigger in the environment appeared, then I responded in the way that I responded. In other words, we're constantly acting out the unmanifest, converting into the manifest. And what is this subtle body also? Nothing but an expression of the causal body. Because the causal body, that means habitual notions, your samskaras, have to be created into a thought. So what does this mean? If the causal body is unmanifest, then that means the subtle body is also unmanifest. Thus, the causal and the subtle body are unmanifest, and the physical body is manifest. Next week, we will talk about two kinds of bhaktas. It will be nishkama bhakta and sakama bhakta. The one who meditates on Lord with features, and the one who meditates without features. And that will just be the introduction, and we'll keep going. I energize the universe. I draw and release the rainy waters. I alone am the cause of immortality as well as mortality. I am the manifest as well as the unmanifest, O Arjuna. What we have seen today is some ideas how to see Ishwara everywhere. Instead of just saying Ishwara is everything. We know that, that's easy. But how is that so? So contemplate on this session and maybe walk in the park and just, kind of recognize the smallness, the details, or how everything's working together and holding everything together. This is going to help the mind to be integrated. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Any questions about today?
Yeah, I have a query. So, after all that we went through, so can you say that Brahma knows what's going to happen tomorrow at 3 o'clock?
How does future happen, right? So suppose I act in one way, I communicate in a certain way, and this way is called A, like one possible way. And tomorrow, so this is today, right? And then there's tomorrow. If suppose that I speak to you in a certain way and I just walk away, right, without apologizing, then tomorrow you and I meet together, what's going to happen? It's going to be an unpleasant connection. So you can already predict that this was going to happen based on the decisions I have taken today. So when we say future, it simply means what is to happen based on the actions of today will happen. But suppose I speak harshly and then I apologize, right? I say I'm sorry. Then tomorrow we meet together. What's going to happen then? A different future based on what I've done today.
So what you're saying is that between that point in time, which is A, and that exact second in time where the two people come together again, in that distance, there's an infinite amount of unmanifest opportunities.
Yeah, and they too will determine what happens by the time we come here. So suppose over here, in this moment, I meet a really good friend, makes me really happy, super happy. So this means this happiness will also influence tomorrow, right? Or another principle here, I have bushfire house, and then I come here and then I ask you for help. Please help me. I'm really, 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 really sorry for what I've said. I've got no one to turn to. So all of these change tomorrow also.
So that's how karma works. It's in the now, between there and then.
Then Brahman is all-knowing.
No, Ishwara, first of all, the word, we're not going to use Brahman, we'll use Ishwara, because Brahman is just consciousness. Ishwara is all-knowing, because everything is stored based on our karma palam today. It is stored tomorrow, but that tomorrow is also changing based on today. And who knows that? The total. That's why total is always working out perfectly how it should be based on just a second ago. That's what knowledge. That's what all-knowing means. I'm keeping track of everything for every single person. Nothing escapes me, says Ishwara. All-knowing means that everyone is documented in the Ishwara computer based on every single action they're doing now. See, if Ishwara was not all-knowing, what would be the problem with that? Then I could do something today, and then tomorrow the results will be totally inconsistent. There will be no connection. It's like, my God, I haven't seen you. Where have you been all this time? And yet yesterday, we had a confrontation with each other. But that's not the case. Tomorrow is a perfect representation of what I did today, the relationship that we had today. That's what all-knowing means.
We have to surrender to Ishwara. We have to worship Ishwara. All these things must affect the outcome in the future.
Yeah, they do. That also affects the outcome. Because if I surrender, then I'm giving away that I am not so intelligent here. I need help. So this means it's going to exhaust this person who wants to take control. So if Ishwara is all-knowing, then if I put myself out of the way as a doer, it means I'm not, I really don't know what to do. I'm open to receiving guidance. I'm open to listening. What needs to be done right now in the environment? What is required of me? That's called Dharma. Then in that case, prayers and surrendering to Ishwara definitely helps. If I don't surrender to Ishwara, then who am I surrendering to? Aham Kara, my own ego. And the ego is not as intelligent as Ishwara, as we know. Now, what does it mean to say to surrender? Because it's a very vague word.
Have complete faith.
Huh?
Have complete faith.
Yeah, okay, faith.
Accepting the results of the
Yeah, oh, excellent. Yeah. Trusting that what happens is in the best good for all. I just have to see it like that, instead of judging it.
Be subservient too.
Yeah, instead of judging it.